Did you hear
Oh,
that? The
I did.
recording is in progress.
There we go. In spite of all the technical limitations, it appears that we may have a very, very short broadcast today.
We're going to have a short broadcast because we spent the last hour trying to figure out how to make this brilliant system that Microsoft stuck us with called Teams, which is totally useless for our purposes, as it turns out. We had, what, 20 some years of perfectly okay work with Skype, and
Very much so. Yeah.
Mr. Gates decided that he got greedy and has sent
Well,
us
I don't
off
know
to.
if Mr. Gates. I would say Microsoft in general. But yes, it's one of those things that you take something that is perfectly good for 99% of the population and turn it into something that's totally useless for 99% of the population. And you go to something else that's really, really new and exciting and brand new, and it works for 1% of the population.
Well, it's pretty evident that for the ability of regular folks just to communicate with each other and let the world know what they're talking about, the big boys don't want this to be an easy process. Uh, yeah, so, here you and I, once a week, we get together and chew the fat, but they don't like you doing that. It's that's
Well,
really. I'm a conspiracy nut on this one. I think they'd invented
I
all this
think
just to
probably,
screw us
John, you're
around.
wrong. You're wrong
Okay.
on that one, only in the sense that they would like us to do that if we pay them more money.
Well, we're we're cheap and we're not going to do that because we're just regular schmoes here trying to,
Well,
talk over the
we're not
fence.
billionaires, that's for sure.
My goodness, it just gets me nuts.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is
Anyway,
episode 15, year fourth season. Just before this may be the last time I speak to you before you go off to the wild blue yonders of Europe.
the med, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. So I guess I'll have to carry the load by myself while you're away. But
Uh,
I'm not sure if
I've
I'm up to it.
doing that. I've got that well under control.
Well, today was a busy day. Our friends in the UK struck a deal with our friends in the United States,
Mhm.
and basically kicked Canada to the curb. Yeah,
Goes
yes.
up,
Elbows up, pants down.
something like that. Yeah. Boy, I'll tell you, we needed, well, on a couple of things. I'm glad that the papacy is back in working order again.
An
I,
American Pope.
and I hope that, what is his, Leo the 14th or
Yep,
15th or something.
yep, yep.
Yeah. Wish him every bit of luck as he moves forward because I think he's going to need it.
Oh yeah, and he's a young guy. He's younger than we are.
That goes without saying. Most people are. But anyway, yeah. So we've got that to contend with, and I guess to sound a little bit off the wallish, I wonder if the new pope will be able to instill the title of Saint Mark on our prime minister. He was supposed to be our big savior, and I don't think he's really doing all that good a job. Um,
Look, I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack, about a foot, of slack.
okay.
Uh, okay, because there's a lot of people who are putting great expectations on the shoulders of this guy. I'm
You
not one of
wanted,
them. I ain't one
you
of them.
wanted.
But the fact of the matter is, in my opinion, he came out of that meeting with Trump basically the wash. I mean, nothing was, no real damage was done. I don't think long term,
No,
but no accomplishments were done short term or even medium term because I don't believe that the deal between Starmer and Trump wasn't already ready to go when he talked to Carney, when Trump met with Carney. They knew that thing was on was going to come out because don't you remember during that press
Yeah.
conference, the president went on about big announcement coming. Ooh, set you up. And in fact, Carney said, "Ooh, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat." You know,
Well, that's true. And, you have to sit back and think when he was over doing his initial "Hi, I'm the new guy in town" meeting, uh, well, 3 weeks ago. I'm sure that this trade agreement was already in the works and not a mention was made of it.
no.
So, yeah, it really, I guess that just kind of sums up where we have gone in the last 10 years from being kind of in the know to, well, if you were important enough, we might tell you to, who are you again? Yeah.
Well, I think that there's ample evidence that the folks at that meeting knew each other before that meeting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, it was a kind of disingenuous of the Canadian media to suggest this is their first meeting and blah, blah, because it wasn't. First of all, the body language gave it away. They touched each other 7 times. I mean, you don't go around touching a perfect stranger on the shoulder or slapping him on the knee if you don't already know each other. I mean, just the whole thing started off with the butt kissing at the beginning, and then it got down to, by the way, I'll give you what you want if I want to give it to you, but I'm not giving you anything,
Yeah.
which is how it ended up. Because I think the dramatic point in that 3.5 minutes that Carney had in the entire 45 minutes or so that this thing went on for was that when the press asked the president, what are you going to do about steel, aluminum, and the car tariff things? And he said, nothing. Are you going to do it now? So it was pretty definite that there was no accomplishment there whatsoever. And even if they had met, which apparently they did for an hour and a half afterwards, the readout from that was either zero from the Americans by and large, or just a whole bunch of hooey from the deck of the Canadian Embassy in Washington about how it was so cordial and blah, blah, blah. And there's lots of meetings to come and whatever.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and
Well,
I thought that on a personal level, I don't like Krista Freeland's policies of the last 10 years. I think she really did a lot of damage to the economy. But I thought it was pretty weak of the prime minister not to defend his friend and cabinet colleague in France when
mhm.
when the president basically
Yeah.
went after her without any sort of
Big sledgehammer.
yeah, I guess that's a yes. So it was a week. It was weak. I would have thought that if a friend of mine, even if it wasn't my friend, but one of my subordinates who I need to protect from, the other team, I would have said, well, you're entitled to your opinion, but I don't agree with you. That's all you got to do. But
Yeah.
he never, the guy basically had all sphincter
Sludge.
muscles tighten up and did nothing. He shrunk into himself, and I thought that's a very bad optic
Yeah.
when it comes to defending your team.
It sure is. Yeah. And I guess the moral that came out of that story for me is, ladies and gentlemen, grab your thesaurus and look up the word sycophant,
Hmm. Yes,
because
absolutely.
that's really what it boiled down to.
Yeah. So that didn't go well, and that just shows that the we're in a deep, deep crisis of leadership, deep crisis on the economic side.
Yeah.
This thing that went on this morning with the discussion between Starmer and President Trump. Starmer called Trump Donald uh, at least 8 or 9 times, which I thought was very familiar. Most of them would call each other Prime Minister or President. Starmer took it upon himself to call him Donald all the time. And at the end, Trump actually called Starmer here once when they signed off on the telephone call. So that tells me something about the relationship there, which in the case of the Carney meeting last week or earlier this week was not the same. It was, Carney, to his credit, he was very respectful, called him the president all the time. while the president called Mark a couple of times. So, you can see it was not a meeting of equals in the sense of leaders of two, sovereign states that tried to.
Yeah,
This guy got the bum's rush. Let's just be honest here.
he
He
did. Yeah, no question about that. And I guess the takeaway for the voters in Canada, I think that somewhere along the line, and I think this can go back to a quote to op-ed out of Winnipeg, I believe. We have to stop voting in celebrities. 10 years ago, we took a guy who was young, uh, relatively unknown, but had a very, very famous last name, to a guy now who supposedly was on the world stage, but as you alluded to in the past, he asked 15 people who he was, and they could say maybe that he was a Bank of Canada, Bank of England, and I think I've got a $50 bill that might have his signature on it. But other than that, and of course, uh, his tactic in the Canadian election of picking a boogeyman and running with it apparently worked well all the way over to Australia because they used the same tactic and the
yes.
Labor government over there got in. So, you know, if President Trump was the big boogeyman that everybody thought Mr. Carney had painted him to be, with his election, shouldn't that have gone away? Uh, Looking at what transpired in the Oval Office, I don't think so. I think that we have just realized and are starting to get over the fact, or we're going to have to get over the fact that the wool was pulled over our eyes, and maybe the emperor doesn't have clothing after all.
Well, all the optics of that meeting were poor. For example, the Three Stooges and I call them that, went with Carney, sat on the couch there. Never opened their mouths. I mean, they were completely starry-eyed there. That they're in the Oval Office,
Yeah,
and they had to be listening to almost 40 minutes of stuff that had nothing to do with bilateral relations. Nobody, not even Carney, asked the three that were sitting there for what do you think? Whereas, Trump turned over to Vance and to others, and they got involved in the conversation. So it was very, I think, humiliating.
well orchestrated.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
oh yeah, he sucked the oxygen right out of the room. There's no question about it. But with today's news, I think but there's a checkmate in a sense that has happened. The old colonial masters in the UK of Canada basically made a deal with the revolutionaries in America. They're going to go on a fabulous, outstanding trade agreement, to paraphrase the president.
yeah.
And Starmer thought he was marvelous with this thing. And they've decided that steel aluminum cars are off the table between the two countries, but in Canada, still 25% across the board. Curiously, Trump has no trouble with Bentleys, Jaguars, and Land Rovers coming to America, but he doesn't want any Fords, Chryslers, or Chevys coming into America from Canada. And he's still going to whack us with the tariffs on steel and aluminum. So, there's then since Canada was incapable of having the same deal with the UK, which it was talking about for literally years, a free trade agreement. It always fell flat on its face because they had to protect the dairy industry. Because the Brits said, no, we're not going to do this nonsense with you about protecting dairy because we're just not going to do it. This whole question of supply management just isn't free trade. And so the free trade agreement with the UK went nowhere. Now, if you're a UK business, after the deal that's made with the US, why would you even come to Canada? What for?
Very
That
true. Yeah.
that that,
However,
that door's
we
been
may,
slammed shut.
yeah,
So,
we may find that those doors might be open again, Tom, when our prime minister invited the king over to have the opening speech.
well, I
Uh,
don't.
that might just it might just throw a lot of things in. We won't have to run around yelling elbows up anymore.
That's wishful thinking, my friend. The king knows full well. Sarmer told him making this deal with the U.S. and he's going to come over to the colonies and see, read. This is really bad optics again. It shows that we are because even though we know we're a constitutional monarchy, fact of the matter is a foreign guy coming here, who, by the way, is not Queen Elizabeth in stature anymore. This guy carries a lot of baggage with him. Okay, he's going to come and read this speech from the throne, and most Canadians go, "Yeah, that's nice." It's irrelevant today. We're past that. We need.
Well, on two levels. One, yeah, it is a reminder of our colonialism and our colonization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's also an indication of the fabric that Canada is made up of. That a lot of the people that are new immigrants and people that are here in Canada
No
have
link.
absolutely no idea who he is and why he's even here. They might see his picture now on a few coins that are being minted or whatnot, but other than that, it means absolutely nothing to them.
I think it's terrible optics, to have this done. It just looks like once again we're subservient to yet another sovereign state. Okay, and in particular because had this deal today not shown up on the front pages of the media between the U.S. and the U.K., you alluded to celebrity nonsense. This is a celebrity event. He comes to Ottawa and reads something he knows nothing about, could care less. I mean, let's be completely serious here. It's of no consequence to the UK government and the king what is written on a confidence vote, basically, that he's going to present to Parliament. I mean,
Well, I guess from that
I
point,
just
it'll be
think the
first.
timing is lousy on this.
And that'll be interesting to see because that'll be the first test of the government. Whether it passes a confidence vote, it'll indicate whether we're going to be governed for the next 4 years by another liberal NDP coalition, even though they don't have official party status. It doesn't bode well for anything. I mean, we're talking about things that should be changed, like the catch and release programs.
Well,
Uh,
domestic issues, apart from the trade and commerce
yeah,
issues,
yeah,
are
and even
overwhelming at the moment.
things like people coming in from the United States because they fear deportation back to their home country by the US. Well, as far as I know, that doesn't make a legitimate refugee claim here in Canada. But we're running into a situation where I don't think it really matters. We've got this government that's going to be propped up by either the 7 seats of the NDP,
I mean,
the Bloc,
the seven dwarfs.
yeah, starting off with Sleepy and
Yeah, that's what I call them.
Sneezy and Doc, and yeah,
And Cinderfella is going to be running this thing.
yeah. So stay tuned. I mean,
Big time trouble.
I haven't seen the eddies, but I've heard the flush,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're in
No,
deep trouble.
we are, and before the election was talked about, there was a growing anti-Eastern sentiment in Alberta and Western Canada, generally growing. Alberta being kind of the center of this, and 30% at the before the election, 30% of folks there really had enough of the deal they're getting. And after this fiasco, even though it was a good showing by the Conservatives, but there was a lot of skullduggery that went on in the election. But let's not get into that. There's just I have no evidence. I'm just reading what I see, reading what I see on the internet or what I hear from the pundits is that's probably spiked by 10% already. Wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
okay because there's just no hope for this government to make any serious reforms electorally, fiscally, with Western Canada. They're just not
Well,
interested.
you know
Just not
darn well,
interested.
yeah. The no more pipelines bill is still going to go ahead. We're still moving ahead to have absolutely no internal combustion engine cars sold by 2035, which
Yep.
is 10 years from now.
Yep.
We don't have the infrastructure for people now. We're going to be like California very soon, where they're going to be saying, uh, don't put your dishwasher on until later. And if you can really afford to not turn on your air conditioners, during the peak hours so we don't have brownouts. Uh, and yet we're moving full steam ahead into this, and it does not make sense. I guess from our point of view of us in our former days, if we get down to the bottom of the pit, will people still want to come here? I don't know.
Well, and I'm
People
and
don't want to come here now, and people are leaving.
yeah,
So,
exactly. And this propaganda effort by the government of Canada to dissuade Canadians from traveling to the US
mhm,
through the uh, pronouncements through global affairs, external affairs is global affair. I hate the term, but anyway, that it's dangerous to go there, and you could be hassled at the border, and you could have your phone seized. I mean, all this boogeyman stuff. And
which
there's a whole bunch of Canadians who are buying into this nonsense. By the way, it's none of your business. When you go to the States or any other country for that matter, how the authorities treat you with respect to the laws that they have on the books. If you don't like what they do in country X or Y, don't go there. And that
mhm,
includes the United States. If you don't like the fact that you could be stopped, as you said earlier in our pre-production, 20 clicks down the road by the Border Patrol just to double up on, what is this car that doesn't have, Washington state plates on it. In fact, I remember I was in a car that had Texas plates and we still got stopped
mhm,
and prove that we were where we're supposed to be, so to speak. That was years ago. I mean, this is my gosh,
yeah, yeah,
coming up from El Paso. So this stuff really doesn't help us.
no,
What I see, and I don't know, we said we're going to keep it short today, but this trying to turn our neighbors into our enemies is not a good idea. I'm sorry.
it's not, no. And the reality is that we've been taught over the last decade or so anyway that there is a we and a they. And if you're not a we, you're some kind of ist.
I know.
Uh, and yeah, anyway, yeah, we're in deep trouble. I don't know how much lower we can go. I hate like throwing out a challenge there, but I'm sure that the government will pick that up. That's for sure.
Will you be back by the time the king reads the speech from the throne?
Probably not. So,
Okay, so I'll be on my own. Thanks a lot.
mm. Anyhow, I see we're timing down. So
Yeah. Well, listen, you all have a good holiday,
yes,
and
and to you, the torch we throw, I'm sure you're going to do a good job.
yeah, I hope I don't drop it. Burn my
Oh,
burn my hands, my feet, whatever. All right.
all right.
I'm going to say bon voyage. See you when you get back.
We shall. Yeah.
Adios, muchachos.